Hello, Superboy Beyond fans. Welcome back. We're going to do another one of our patented Superboy episode commentaries today. Today, we're going to choose a Season 3 episode. This would be Season 3, Episode 14, The Golem. This is a great episode featuring as our guest star, the great, the legendary Brian Thompson, who everybody knows from his many, many roles in The X-Files, Star Trek,
Buffy, This guy, Brian Thompson, has
Journeys.
He's just one of those actors. He's like a character actor that mostly works within genre shows and movies. A lot of horror, a lot of sci-fi, a lot of fantasy. And he's just one of those actors that I don't think I've ever seen him put in a bad performance, Even in the first Terminator movie where he's just one of Bill Paxton's thugs, he's still pretty decent in it. I think he only has like one line, but...
Was he one of the thugs or was he the lead guy?
No, he was definitely one of the thugs. It was Bill Paxton was the main one, but no, he was one of them. Yeah. I remember it well. But
it's been so long since I watched the original Terminator.
I love the original Terminator, I actually prefer it to Terminator 2, as sacrilegious as that might be to say. I like the fact that the first one is just a straight up horror movie. I like action movies as well, but even though I'm not a huge horror guy, I do usually tend to lean more towards horror than action. Just because I think horror has a lot more interesting stories you can tell because you can suddenly start dealing with the supernatural and stuff. Much like with superhero films, those are basically action movies, but because they've got that genre element that just heightens everything. Yep. Yeah, that's one of the reasons superhero movies grab my attention, but movies like Bad Boys 2 don't. But this is Season 3, Episode 14, The Golem, which I believe is based on a comic book story, which is also where Superboy fights Nazis and there's the Golem in it. I'm pretty sure I saw this on a list of episodes that were adapted from the comics.
So Mike Carlin, if you're watching, if you could confirm this for us, it would be most appreciated. I don't remember it. If this is your first time watching this with us, watching a commentary with us, you will not see any clips from the episode in it. You will not hear any of the audio. There will be a very highly filtered little version of the episode right up
in the middle
up there. Up there. That's just so you can keep in sync with us. It's highly filtered so that you couldn't say that we're actually showing the episode.
No, you could not watch this as a replacement for the DVD. You will need your own copy of the show to watch alongside us. It's in no way a substitute, and this is not like a typical YouTube reaction video as well. This is completely uncut. You'll be seeing our reactions for the entire thing. Partly because I don't think there'd be any point if we did re-edit these commentaries to be like a reaction like that, because these episodes are only about 22 minutes each. And typically, if you on YouTube show more than like something stupid, like a quarter of the entire running time of something, it's just automatically blocked. So we would have to be editing these commentaries down from 22 minutes per episode to 5 minutes per episode. And I just don't think that would be as much fun to watch, personally. And let's face it, nobody is watching our YouTube channel unless they're a massive fan of Superboy. I can't imagine there's anybody that's just, maybe seen an episode or two. This is very... Yeah. We've got a highly specific audience.
Yes.
Should we get going?
Yep. So I'm going to count you guys in with a 3, 2, 1, and then play. So get ready. 3, 2, 1, play.
And I see that this is one of the episodes that's got a green line going down the left-hand side. It's amazing how many episodes of Superboy have that. I have no idea why. Supposedly, when they made the DVDs, they just, took all the sources that they had for each episode and just chose whichever one looked the best.
Right.
So, the fact that so many episodes do have like a green line down the sides, I seriously would have to wonder just how bad exactly were the other versions that they might have had access to.
Mm.
I'd be interested. I know Gerard Christopher used to sell DVDs that he literally would make himself on his website. I think technically he was selling the autographs, but the autographs came with the show on DVD. But yeah, I wonder how his copies compare. I wonder if his are any better.
Well, you'd have to ask somebody who actually plunked down the $200 for it.
I so wanted to, but I didn't have the money. I was only about 13, 14 at the time. I had a paper round, but it would have taken me something stupid like 3 months to save up that much.
Yep, and then eventually, he discontinued selling the stuff.
He probably had a cease and desist from Warner Brothers, to be fair. I can't imagine they were happy about him doing that. Although as an executive producer, maybe he had the right to distribute it how he wanted. I don't know.
Yeah. I like that the fact that this episode is very topical,
Yeah. It's funny. People talk a lot about how, especially with shows like Supergirl, some people say that they went woke and that's when the show went downhill. But honestly, I mean, going right back to just stuff like even Superman and the Mole Men with George Reeves, extremely socially conscious episode. It's all about prejudice and the dangers of lynch mobs, and it's obvious that it's all a metaphor for racists and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just always been part of the fabric, and I like the fact that they're not afraid to tell these sorts of stories. Just like it's the same reason I love Star Trek as much as I do.
Yeah, and the thing about it is they don't go overboard with it.
No.
That's
the only time when I think people really have a problem is when it's just so heavy-handed that the story itself suffers. When it's sometimes you do get the impression that they're making something almost a virtue signal. I don't even know if that's the accepted term these days. I think it's frowned upon now, but if there's a good story and there's a good reason for the story, and then you have a social message, fantastic. But when the story itself sucks and it's just there for the social message, that's when people have an issue, I think. And this is one of the better episodes, even though Superboy actually is, defending Nazis throughout parts of this episode. Purely because of it's a misunderstanding. He doesn't have all the information. All he knows is that the Golem is killing people. And he's trying to stop.
He knows why the Golem is killing them. He's pretty much, of the opinion that it doesn't matter what somebody believes. No one has a right to take someone else's life. So he's defending life.
It's about his no killing rule. Yeah, he'd rather see someone go to prison for the rest of their lives. And we've talked about it in the past when we did our one story 3 times mini series thing. I don't like the death penalty personally, just because of how many times it has happened where someone has been executed and then it's turned out they were innocent. I think if it happens even once, it's too much of a risk.
Right.
So, I do see where Superboy's coming from.
Our first view of Brian Thompson.
Just his eye.
I would love to ask him what it was like to be in that getup. Because he's known for playing a lot of characters that have a lot of makeup on them.
Yeah, he's no stranger to it. I imagine as well, like, if he ever had makeup where he needed to, have a plaster cast done of his face, it's probably a very similar experience. He's just being encased in plaster, basically.
Yeah.
I suppose the only real difference is this time he's wearing it on camera, not just behind the scenes.
Yep. And it's interesting, the legend of the Golem is something that goes back to Eastern European mythology, Eastern European Jewish mythology. The Golem was apparently created to be a protector of the Jewish community. And we get a little bit of an understanding of that from Levi's friend here, who's visiting the bureau.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of that legend ever since I was a kid. I think the first time I learnt about it was around the era that Pokemon was coming out, because there was a Pokemon named Golem. And so, at some point, one of the things I liked doing was just looking for the reasons for certain names. And I thought Golem sounded like it could have been a thing. But it's just one of those stories that I always thought it's a shame the real world very rarely has magic and the supernatural. But I don't even believe that our world does have those things. That's just me, though.
Yeah.
But I always thought it's a shame. I wish there were ghosts. I wish there was supernatural golems.
And it's interesting here that he's basically telling them what to look for when you're dealing with this guy, and he knows they don't believe him. He can see it on their face, or at least on Matt's. Because as usual, Matt is being the skeptic,
which is probably why he's good at his job. Because just think how many hoaxes they probably have to deal with on a daily basis. Having someone that's automatically skeptical is probably a good place to start from. And we just look at Day in the Double Life, how many fake artifacts came in while Clark was working the desk. Only one of them turned out to be real. Does Brian Thompson even have any dialogue in this episode?
I think he has one word at the end.
See, that's a shame. But I suppose at this point, he wasn't quite the Brian Thompson we know today.
No, he was. It's just the character doesn't need that much in the way of, dialogue. It's just a brute force.
I don't know. I always like when Brian Thompson plays a character, though, that's got slightly more intelligence, because I think he is a very versatile actor.
And now he realizes that he killed Levi.
And you can see it on his face that he knows he's messed up there.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to say anything to give a solid performance. And now all these scenes later where he's super angry, he's angry because of what just happened more than anything.
Right. But also, the way Levi taught him, he taught him that these neo-Nazis look like this, and the police are wearing almost the exact same thing. So now he's going to attack the cops.
Yeah. And obviously, if the guy hadn't have just died in that scene, he probably would have corrected him in this. Like, oh no, they're just police. Maybe we need to work on the things you need to look for in bigots. What a shame this is the only episode with Brian Thompson, though.
Now we're introduced to the other main character in the episode, which is Daniel.
I'll tell you what, he would have been a pretty good Bibbo Bibowski in Superman comics. I think I could see him in the Superman T-shirt working behind the bar. Too bad we've already got R1 for season 5 because he would have been pretty good for it. But the fact is, he could still play it today. Maybe if Bibbo is in Superman Legacy, maybe Brian Thompson could be Bibbo. Who knows? But then I also think Michael Rooker would be an excellent Bibbo, and James Gunn casts Michael Rooker in everything. So,
yep. And now you're kind of wondering why Daniel did what he did.
I know I say it every time there's a decent explosion, but Superboy really did do well with it with its explosions. They may have tried to save money in a lot of places, but clearly pyrotechnics is something they knew they could do impressively.
I actually love this scene because of when Superboy shows up.
Added to this was their unclean dress and their generally unheroic appearance.
Incredible.
It's Mein Kampf.
Not the book, the fact that you can read.
I like that.
Just that line, remarkable. And the neo-Nazi says, "You've read Mein Kampf?" And he says, "No, it's remarkable. You can actually read."
Yeah, just a great line.
You got to think that Jerry and Joe would have been very proud of that scene.
Mm. And I like what Superboy just said there about, he protects life wherever he finds it. He doesn't discriminate like the Nazis themselves do. It does remind me of, in Superman and the Mole Men, when, he saves that one, the guy that was leading the lynch mob, I forget his name.
The one who was played by Jeff Corey.
Yeah, I think so. And it's like, you saved my life. And he's like, which is more than you deserve. And he doesn't even look at him. He just walks away. And yeah, similar sort of feeling behind that moment and this. Superboy makes it clear he's got no time for them, but he will save their lives. I would love to know what's going through the heads of those Nazis, though, because for all intents and purposes, their ideal just told them that he finds them disgusting.
Yeah.
And also thinks that they're idiots as well. So it's just...
But, then the leader would probably just turn it around and say, well, he's got dark hair. He's not an Aryan.
Yeah. Even though he himself has dark hair. Too.
Yeah.
Nazis, they never really had much of a knack for self-criticism or self-evaluation or whatever.
Mm. And it's interesting. We're now getting a little bit of exposition from Daniel here, saying that he's been researching the legend of the Golem for a long time.
Is this actor in any other episode of Superboy? Because I recognise him, but I can't place it.
I don't think he's ever been in another episode. He does look familiar to me, though.
Maybe he was just in another show that I've seen from this era.
That's a possibility. I think this is actor Paul Kufos.
I'm pulling up the IMDb for this episode now, just so I can confirm or, let's see. Might be that as I'm scrolling through, I'm like, oh yeah, it's that. I recognise him from this. What's that character's name?
Daniel.
Daniel. Paul Kufos. He was in the Swamp Thing movie, but I've not seen that myself.
The original one?
The TV series of Swamp Thing from 1991. He was in an episode of that, sorry.
That's probably was.
I haven't seen that, so
he was
in an
episode. Thugs.
Yeah, probably. He was in 2 episodes of the Incredible Hulk TV series as well. He was in the pilot for the original Battlestar Galactica.
Oh. Probably played one of the pilots or something.
Maybe. Oh, unless he... No, I don't know. I'll just scroll through. I've gone past it now. But now I can't see anything I would have seen him in, so I guess he just has one of those faces.
And I loved what they just did a few minutes ago, where both Lana and the Golem are looking at this flyer for the neo-Nazi group.
And now, I'm going to say something a little bit strange.
Okay.
I kind of wish Superboy didn't get involved in this episode, to be honest. Part of me just wishes they'd let him do his job. Because, they're getting, they're getting quite bold. They're not hiding the Nazi stuff. They're even handing out flyers and shit. Honestly, though, the police should have been shutting this shit down long before this.
Well, the thing about it is the police don't get involved unless there's violence, because we do have in our Constitution, freedom of speech.
Yeah, but they seem to be... And plus, didn't the episode open with the Nazis, beating up an old man? So the violence already happened. So from that moment, the police should have stepped in. A hate crime has been committed.
Yeah, but unless somebody goes to the police to make the complaint, they can't act.
But I like this actor that's playing Daniel. Did you say his name was?
Yes.
Yeah, I think he's really good.
The revelation that we get at the end of the episode, why he's doing what he's doing, is very, very surprising.
I think I remember the ending, but I might be wrong, so I'm going to keep quiet until I get there. But I like that they're... Oh, so that's all. Is that all he says? Shalom.
Yeah.
Good enough. It was a good moment. Yeah. So now he's destroyed the symbol, so he's turning back to stone, which I think is a shame. It's almost a shame since they've proven that he does have free will. It would have been nice just to let him live and actually go and create a life for himself. Because I know technically he's kind of one of the antagonists of the episode, just purely because he is the guy that Superboy fights in it.
Yeah.
But Nah, I would have liked for him to live. But yeah, you can see on the guy's chest there, he's got the symbol on it.
Yep. And what he was saying to Brian Thompson's Golem is, you can learn to be better. It's obvious that he was the Golem of myth, Daniel.
I think that's a really cool ending, and I really, really wish we could have seen that character return again. Maybe in season 5.
Yeah.
I haven't got a story for him yet, but
overall a great episode. I mean, it shows that there is, while what they were doing was reprehensible, the neo-Nazis, and I don't think that anything that they do is right.
yeah,
No
obviously.
one has the right to take their lives.
It's, as I said when we did one story 3 times, I don't like the death penalty because, and it even goes back to, I don't know if you ever watched The Good Place. Did you ever see that show?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. Never really watched it.
One of my all-time favorite shows. It is, from start to finish, it is one of the best stories I've ever seen involving that subject matter. But there's a thing in the argument where they're trying to argue the fact that all these people that are going to the bad place and getting tortured for eternity, and they point out the fact that you what's the word they use, but you're sentencing them for who they are at the moment of their death, but what you're not taking into account is who they might have become tomorrow. And it's kind of a big thing. If you take someone's life, the chances of that person ever being redeemed go to 0. Like, it's never going to happen now. And, you could argue that some people don't deserve redemption. Some people do just deserve to go to prison for the rest of their lives and leave it there. But the fact is, so many people, it's turned out over the years, have been convicted and executed for crimes. And it's turned out a few years later that they were innocent.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, that happens once, it's one too many times.
Yeah, it's just like that scene from The Naked Gun. As funny of a scene as it is, it's very poignant. Frank's, filling up his box to leave, and he says, "Oh, look, here's the missing evidence from the Kellner case. My God, he was innocent." Frank, that guy went to the chair 3 years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, in the animated series of Superman, it was the late Mr. Kent in that episode, wasn't it? Like, the whole impetus for the story is the fact that there's an innocent man on death row, and Clark Kent's the only one that believes him, because he could hear in his heartbeat as he was telling him that he was innocent, that he was being truthful. Yeah. And I thought it was a really intelligent way to handle that subject matter. I don't think the Golem handles any of the subject matters even quite as well as I think that episode did. But I do think this is a really solid episode, and it's got some good ideas. And man, I wish Brian Thompson's character had decided to live and gone off with the other Golem, Daniel. That would have been a really cool episode. And then you could have brought them both back. The 2 Golems join forces with Superboy once again to stop a bigger threat. Who knows? Maybe Hitler has come forward in time somehow. They have to fight Hitler himself. Yep. That could have been a fun episode. I don't know. I've seen like Captain America and Superman like punch Hitler so many times on comic book pages. I kind of want to see it in live action at some point. We've got it with Captain America. Let's let Superman do it for once. Let's recreate that symbol where you see like Hitler and Mussolini, like Superman's got them both. He's like giving them both a wedgie, flying them above the clouds. I want to see that in live action. Come on. The Silver Age and, okay, comic books just became propaganda for a long time. And some people don't like that. But I think every now and then there was something quite funny about it.
Actually, it wasn't Mussolini, it was Stalin.
Was it Stalin? Right. It happened so many times. I'm sure at some point, whoever was like the leader of Japan at the time. I don't know who was running Japan at that point.
Emperor Hirohito.
Yeah, maybe he was even on an issue. Who knows? I'm sure. Yeah, there's, I'm not going to say that all of this propaganda stuff from World War II was good, because a lot of it was just really, really racist.
Oh, don't get me started.
How many issues of Superman had this slogan on it, like "slap a Jap"? No, horrible. Okay, they were doing really, really horrible things during the war. It just didn't age well, did it? It aged like milk, as they say.
Yeah, it's like the episode of the Fleischer cartoons, Jungle Drums.
Yeah,
that's pretty racist right there. There's also
if you go to Star Trek, you've got the episode in season 1 with the planet of the Africans, and they want to take Tasha Yar. And,
oh God! Well,
that is one of
was supposed to be lizard people.
It would have been so much better as lizard people. I'm sorry, it would have been so much less racist. It was just awful. What an episode that was. Oh, Jesus. But it wasn't even the only time. They had the episode The Planet of the Irish People as well. And they even have O'Brien in the episode. And Colin Meaney must have been saying on set, like, what the fuck is this, guys? What are we doing? I'm sure he wasn't happy. They had an Irish man on the cast, and they still did that episode.
Yeah, although there is one really great scene in it, and that's the scene between Riker and Brenna.
There's always at least one great scene, though. You can take the worst episodes of all these shows. There's always at least one scene that's great. I even say about the weakest seasons of Smallville, even the worst episodes of Smallville have some pretty fucking great character development moments in there. If it's not just Clark and the Kents, is character development for Lex or Lana or whoever. Right. There was always something character-wise to enjoy with Smallville, even in the absolute worst episodes. Even the episode where Lana and Chloe and Lois are possessed by witches. There are some really, really lovely scenes between Clark and the Kents in that episode that I would not want to lose. So you can't get rid of that episode because there is something good in it. I'm really going off on a rant now, but I think that's one of the reasons we love Superboy, though. It's one of the reasons we love this show, because even the worst episodes, we always seem to find at least one scene to like. Yeah. Phantom of the Third Division. I still say that final scene where they're in the aircraft hangar and he's got Jonathan Kent going through that assault course, crawling under barbed wire and stuff. I really like that scene. I think it's just the right mix, and the way they end it without violence. It's not a good episode, but I think the ending is solid enough that at the very least, it's a passable episode.
Yep. But, and as much as Brian Thompson did not have much in the way of dialogue in this episode.
Well, he had one word. Yeah. It was a good word, though. It was a good word.
His performance in it is so good, and it's not just because he's playing, the I pick things up and put them down brute. Okay, that scene
you can see.
The scene where he's sitting in the garbage with the dog, and he's being so gentle with the dog. You can see that he's starting to, I guess, evolve.
He's becoming more human as it is.
And he's what Daniel
connecting
says
with his humanity, and I like the fact that Daniel appeals to that humanity. It's a shame he still decided to die, but I liked those moments. I like the fact that you could see he didn't have to say anything. You could see it on his face. He projected all of these emotions and thoughts, and you could see him growing as a person without having to say a word. And I think that's a mark of a really talented actor.
Yep.
I would also say a lot of it is down to the directing and the editing as well, because it doesn't matter how good an actor is, if you fail to capture it on camera, it's not going to work. So I would have to give credit to Mike Carlin and Andrew Helfer for writing this, and I would have to give credit to the director of this. I forget who even directed this one, but
I think this one was written by Paul Stubenrausch.
Oh, was it? Okay. Well, Paul Stubenrausch, you did. I think you delivered a great story. And yeah, I think the writing and the directing, the way it was shot and edited, I think all these things came together with a great central performance from Brian Thompson, who didn't have to even say shalom at the end. He could have even just said it with a smile. But I'm glad they did say something. I like the word as well. I've always liked that word, despite not being Jewish myself. I just think it's a nice word, And I know that Christians say shalom as well sometimes, because I remember a hymn from when I was a kid that was, I think the song was called Shalom Shalom. So
Yeah.
clearly it's something that New Testament people also use.
Yep.
But yeah, I thought it had quite a nice sort of poetic sort of. I like the fact that they finished it not with a. I mean, there was a fight scene, but I like the fact that it wasn't solved by violence. It was solved by appealing to his humanity.
Yeah, and that
yeah.
scene where he appeals to his humanity and he gives the child down. It leads us to the idea that maybe that kid will change.
You'd hope so.
Typically,
Typically when people have these super hateful viewpoints, typically it is stuff that sort of it gets into them as kids, because that's when they're taught that stuff. Because let's face it, you can say this about religions or cults or just anything of this kind, even political stuff. You indoctrinate them young, because if you get them while they're young, there's very little chance that they'll leave.
Yep. It's
because
like
kids are impressionable.
Yep. It's like Dennis Leary stated about his kids. He says, they say that kids are born evil. No, they're not born evil. You make them evil. The only thing that my kid is hungry and crying.
Yeah, pretty much. Kids are so impressionable. I would have to hope, at the very least, that kid is remembering that encounter. And I know it's just TV, and this kid ceased to exist the moment the episode ended. But,
right.
I would like to imagine that's the sort of thing that would change your mind on things like that. I know if I was in that position, it would absolutely be the sort of thing that would, at the very least, cause me to take a step back and reconsider a few things.
Yeah.
Whether Superboy helping them in any way is going to change the adults, I seriously doubt it. I think by the time you're that age, there's very little that can be done. I'm not saying it's impossible. There are certainly people that have changed their viewpoints in later life.
Yep.
Typically, something pretty dramatic has to happen for that for it to happen. And who knows, maybe a superhero stepping in to save your life might be enough. Maybe it would change their views, but who knows?
Yeah.
It's either way though. It's a fun episode. It's an episode that's got a lot more going on than just the surface level stuff. I wouldn't say it's, one of the best episodes of the show, but I would give it at least a solid 8.5, personally.
I would agree. I mean, the performance by all involved. Paul Kufos as Daniel, great. And he didn't really have all that much to do,
but he made an impact.
Yes.
When he was on screen, he was the one I was watching. Even when he was on screen alongside Superboy himself or Lana, or And
I mean that first where we see him, in the crowd, and he's watching the, Brian Thompson's Golem, do what he's doing. You can almost see it on his face, like he's realizing it's another Golem.
Yeah,
it's just like me.
Yeah. Maybe they've even got like this sixth sense to identify each other. Maybe it's one of those things.
Yep.
They say that sometimes people can recognize their own. Like, it doesn't matter what type of group you're in. People find it very easy to recognize like-minded people. I think it's easier with people like us because we're so nerdy that to know that you could probably be our friend just by talking about Superman. It's not that difficult. We're not that hard to read, but
Yeah, but just the way he acted in that one moment where you see it on his face, it's like
there's a realization. You sense it. Like, yeah, really solid. I wish that they brought him back for something else.
So do I. And I like that end sequence when he's trying to appeal to his burgeoning humanity, saying, "You don't have to be like this."
And I like the reveal at the end with the thing on his chest, because it shows that he's not just trying because he thinks it might work. He's doing this because he's been through it himself, so he knows that this is the best possible chance. And I think it works. He knows it can work because it presumably worked for him. And I like that a lot. I think this is a really solid episode. 8.5.
Yeah. What brings it down, though, for me is
the production value on some of the fights didn't work. Like the gas station fight and stuff, it looked a bit cheap. Apart from the explosion, which looked pretty good, the rest of that sequence, not so much.
Yeah. And then the reveal before the reveal, because Daniel walks up and you see his shirt flopping open. And right then, as the light hits it, just for a brief second, you see the Hebrew sign of life. And,
But that must have been on purpose. That must have been like a clue for just the most eagle-eyed of the viewers. But at the same time, this was compressed so far down for VHS and television. There's a good chance that, most people watching probably couldn't see it at the time. Yeah. If this show was to be, I'm sure you did. I mean, I noticed it straight away when we were watching because I was looking for it at a certain point because I was sure that was the twist. But it's been a while, so I wasn't quite certain. But then we pointed it out at that time. If this show was ever actually properly remastered for HD, like for HBO Max or something, you would see that so clearly. Like it would be really, really obvious.
Had the scene been shot a little bit, differently, like, more darkness, Daniel comes up, behind Superboy and the left-hand side of his body is covered by Superboy's front. Yeah, then it would have been great. And then he walks around him and then he's fixing his shirt. And then you see it. Because I kind of feel that, the way the script probably was written is that as he's walking away, that's when you see it. Who knows what happened on set?
Who knows? Maybe they figured you wouldn't be able to see it from that far away. Televisions back then were crap,
Tell me about it.
Yeah. My first television, I've told you before, I grew up in the 90s and my first television was still a black and white television just because it was one my mother had since she was a kid. That's how old it was. So, yeah. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed watching this episode. It's one that I thoroughly enjoyed. Like, it was a lot better than I remember it being. But we'll see you next time. Don't know what we're going to be doing next week. We haven't decided yet, so it will be a surprise. Be sure to tune in again then. Goodbye.
Yep.
Viacom.